Eid Mubarak, Eid Mubarak, 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 Eid 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 Mubarak.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وعلى صحبه وكل من تبع الهدى إلى يوم الدين. We give glory to Almighty Allah for His infinite mercy on each and every one of us. And all praise belong to Allah and His blessings unto the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is with deep pleasure that I felicitate with the Muslim community in Nigeria and by extension across the globe on this day of Eid-ul-Adha, which is a festival of sacrifice of the year 1444 or 2023. This annual festival occasion symbolically reminds us of the imperative of the need for total submission and obedience to the will of Allah, and the need for us to reinvigorate our spirit of sacrifice. This resonates with the philosophy and essence behind the sacrifice of animals for submissiveness, as He declared in the Holy Qur'an that their flesh reaches not Allah, nor does their blood, but it is righteousness that reaches Him. Thus He has subjected them to you, that you may glorify Allah, for He is guiding you and give glad tidings to those who do good. Firstly, it is a special mercy of Allah that He keeps reminding us that we have no choice in having to willfully submit to Him, as the ram sacrificed have no choice in submitting to us. Not the flesh, not the blood, but the total submission is what is needed. This is one of the most compelling messages in this verse. If this symbol of submission is not there for remembrance, it will have been confined to literatures or possibly history without current values. We will all die one day, and that is the clear message. The salient question will be whether we submit to the will of Allah or not. This question will be answered by each and every one of us one day. Secondly, the act of righteousness is the underlying tone behind the sacrifice. It is only the righteousness that reaches Allah. And righteousness has 11 parts, according to the Holy Qur'an. In Quran chapter 2, verse 178, it reads, "It is not righteousness that you turn your face to the east or the west, but truly righteousness is he who believes in Allah." That is the first foundation of the act of righteousness, to which the message of Eid-ul-Adha is given to us. The 11 parts that I mentioned earlier on, the first is believe in Allah. And the second is, and the last day. And the third is, and the angels of Allah. And the third is, the books of Allah. The fourth is, the prophets of Allah. And the sixth is, spending money for the love of Allah. And there are 7 people that we are directed to spend money on. The first ones are the kindred, the second are the orphan, the third are the needy, and the fourth are the wayfarer, the fifth are for charity, and the sixth is for ransoming the captives. Now, the seventh one is the act of prayers, and the eighth is the zakat, and the ninth one is for those who fulfill their promise when they have made one, and the patient in poverty and affliction. That's number 10. And then the 11th are the steadfast in the time of war. It is these who have proved to be truthful, and it is these who are God-fearing. Let me re-emphasize that the essence of our sacrifice is firstly for us to remember that we will die one day. And when we die one day, what are the things that are going to be requested of us? These are the 11 parts of righteousness. So when we say we are sacrificing, we are actually sacrificing for the purposes of righteousness. And the first thing, as mentioned out of those 11, is our belief in Allah. Belief in Allah also have various parts. The first one is to believe in the existence of Allah. And the second one is to believe in the power of Allah. The third one is to believe in the mercy of Almighty Allah. And the fourth one is to believe in all other attributes of Almighty Allah. Allah is the one that hears our prayers. He answers our prayers. He provides for us. All these beliefs are belief in Almighty Allah. And that is what the Holy Quran teaches us, that it is not only by facing the east or facing the west in terms of prayer alone, but one must have what we call taqwa. And the foundation of taqwa is belief in Allah. And that is why it says, Man amana billah. And that is the first one, which is believe in Almighty Allah. The second one is waliyawmil akhir. And that is to believe also in the last day, the day of judgment. We will remember that Almighty Allah has created both life and death to try us, and at the end of the day, those who pass are going to be the inheritors, of the paradise at the end of the day. And these are the works that we will do, for each and every one of us to be the inheritor of paradise. So for the last day, and that is the day that we will be accountable for all our actions. So the sacrifice that we do make us remember that we will die one day, and that will be the end of the life, and we will go and account for our actions. Almighty Allah says in another verse of the Holy Quran khalaqal mauta wal ayata liyabluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala. Almighty Allah has created a life and death to bring an end to life so that he can know those who do good, those who willingly do good. And that is the essence of the Waliyawmil Akhir. A Muslim must always be remembering the last day. It is by remembering the last day that we will be moving away from sin, and we will always be very close to Almighty Allah. And the Holy Quran continues to say, وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ, and also we need to believe in the angels of Allah. And through the angels of Allah, a lot of miracles happen, especially to those who have faith in Almighty Allah and those who call on Almighty Allah. The angels of Allah is one that brought the message of the Holy Quran also to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we all know to be angel Jibril, which is the archangel. These angels are still very much, with us, that Allah sent, on his emissaries. So we should believe in the power of Almighty Allah to send the angels to be of assistance, to us at any point, in time. Believe in the books of Allah is also one of the aspects of righteousness. It is not an act of righteousness that somebody will say, I believe in parts of the Holy Quran, for example, and I don't believe in some, or I believe in the Holy Quran, but I don't believe in the earlier books. No. We have to believe in all the books of Almighty Allah. But let me clarify that I do not intend to say that we should follow the adulterated books. And the only book that remains unadulterated is the Holy Quran. For those who have the knowledge of the books, we should follow the words of Allah in those books. And it will be specifically said that Allah said, because in most of the earlier books, they have already been adulterated, in the sense that you will find the words of Allah there. You will also find the word of men. Even in some circumstances, you find the word of other beings that are not Allah nor human being, like the word of devil and so on and so forth, on what is said out there. So believe in the books of Allah is also one of the cardinal principles that we should believe as Muslims. And during these Eid-ul-Adha, we should remember that we have to believe in the books of Allah. The next one is wanabiyin, and that is to believe in the prophets of Allah. We must believe in all the prophets of Allah without exception. All of them. We must believe in them. And we must believe in the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as Khatamun Nabiyyi wa Khatamul Mursaleen, as the seal of all the prophets. He is the peak, the head, the lead of all the prophets. And that is the epitome of the prophethood, that we should believe in him. We must believe in Prophet Isa, alayhi salatu wasalam, Prophet Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam, and of course our great father, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Ismail, his son, and Prophet Ibrahim, alayhi salatu wasalam, in whose commemoration this Eid-ul-Adha actually is launched. We know Asrat Ismail, as a youth, demonstrated faith to Almighty Allah by submitting himself to Almighty Allah. And it's the same thing, Asrat Ibrahim, who is his father, also demonstrated faith in Almighty Allah. So our belief in all the prophets must be unwavering. And we should believe all the earlier prophets, earlier before them as well. The Holy Quran says that La nufaruku baina ahadin. We should not seek differences between them. That, we believe in this, we don't believe in that. And that is not going to be a perfect faith. A perfect righteousness is somebody who believes in all the prophets of Almighty Allah. I have taken time to break down what is required of us when we are celebrating Eid-ul-Adha, so that we do not think, we are only killing to eat ram. No. The beginning of it is that we are killing the ram to tell us that the ram is submissive to us, and as the ram is submissive to us, that is the way we are going to be submissive to Almighty Allah, whether we like it or not. And when we get there, that will be the day of judgment. What is going to be our reward? And that is why we are emphasizing on the act of righteousness that Almighty Allah require for the sacrifice. And I start taking the elements of those things that are required of us as far as righteousness is concerned. So we are on number 5, which are the prophets of Almighty Allah. I want to recap again for remembrance. Believe in Allah, believe in the last day, believe in the angels, believe in the books, and the 5th is believe in Almighty Allah. In the prophets of Almighty Allah. All these 5 are very, very important and very fundamental for us. Next, that the Holy Quran mentioned as a part of taqwa, which is belief in Almighty Allah, or righteousness in the act of doing good, spending money for the love of Allah. All the money we will be spending in life should be for the love of Allah. If we do that, we are going to earn reward of righteousness for so doing. And here, the Holy Quran has listed 7 people that we should spend money on. And these are the instructions of Almighty Allah, that if we follow this instruction, it is going to be very beneficial to us. Now, the first set of people that Almighty Allah wants us to spend our money on, he had mentioned them, al-Qurba, and these are on the kindred. That is our people, our kindred. We know as fathers, we have to spend on our wives, on our children, on our mother, on our father, on our uncle, our niece, our cousins, our relatives, both immediate and extended relatives. Our neighbor as well that needs our assistance. We should help them. We should assist. We should spend. And this is the way Allah has structured the world. But let me mention here that also that does not encourage laziness, in which some people will rely on other people just for their living, knowing that, he's going to do it. Anything I ask, he's going to do it. Islam does not confer the act of laziness on any individual. We must all be hardworking so that we can get resources to be able to make this sacrifice so that Allah can reward us. And the Holy Quran continues to say, Waliyatama, and that is the orphan. Those people who do not have father, or do not have mother, or do not have father and mother. And these are people that Allah commands us to spend on. And we should also be very careful in handling the properties of orphan. We should be very careful in handling the properties of orphan. The next are the needy that we should spend on, those who are in need, like students, for example, whose parents are not able to afford. Those who are sick, they are ill, they are at the hospital, they need our help. and the wayfarer as well. Those who are traveling, they are stranded, we are supposed to help them out, and also to give charity to those who are requesting for it, and for ransoming the captives. Those who are captives, we should help them. These are the 7 categories. Almighty Allah also asks us to pray, to pay zakat, and also to fulfill our promise. Fulfilling promise is very important for us. And then we should remain very steadfast during poverty and affliction, and then during the time of war. We should remain very steadfast. If we can do all this, Almighty Allah at the end of it says that Ulaika allazina sadaku wa ulaika humul muttaqun. These are the people who are truthful, and they are the people who are God-fearing. So I want us to pay attention to all this one. And the third one in the message of that verse is that Almighty Allah said that we should glorify him for guiding us onto the right path. The promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, did mention that the word sacrifice was reserved for these animals that are due to be slaughtered. And in the hadith, it's also mentioned that if a person fulfill this sacrifice with sincerity, piety, and deep faith, all that we have mentioned, it becomes, for him a means of attaining closeness to and the union with Almighty Allah the Highest. These sacrifices are among the noblest acts of sacrifice in Sharia. In addition to that, in the Eid sermon of our Khalifa, Hasrat Khalifatul Mu'minin, the 5th, on 10th of July 2022, which was captioned, "Offer sacrifices for Allah as Abraham and his family did." And that is, Hasrat Ibrahim did offer with all sense of sacrifice, both himself, the wife, as well as his son, Hasrat Ishmael. When Hasrat Ibrahim had a dream that he sacrificed Hasrat Ishmael, and he told the mother said, "Do as Allah has wished." It's the same thing. The son also said, "Do as Allah has wished," which means they submitted to the wish of Allah. So we must all submit to the wish of Allah. In addition to the words of the promised Messiah, the founder of Ahmadiyya, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, "A Muslim is he who places his neck for slaughter at the altar of Allah, the Highest. The sacrifices the camel of his soul," that is, he removes all act of arrogance, "and places his forehead on the ground to be given up as an offering to Allah, and is never forgetful of death, even for a moment." So, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam and all listeners, in the light of the major teachings that I have emphasized, the world is facing challenges, now, threat of war and war. It is incumbent on mankind to imbibe, the sense of humility and obedience to Almighty Allah, which is the spirit of Eid-ul-Adha, so that there can be positive changes in the world and peace. And finally, currently Nigeria has gotten new government. Let us all pray for the success of the government. We need to make tremendous sacrifices and allow the government time so that they can right a lot of wrongs of the past in the interest of all. Let us keep remembering the government in prayers, and we should also be preaching to them by telling them what is right in a noble manner and in a very peaceful manner. Those of our brothers who are on Hajj, I implore them to remember the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in their prayers, as well as the president, the vice president, people of the National Assembly, and the governors, the deputy governors, all their executives that will be leading the country. May Almighty Allah continue to lead them aright, and may Allah forgive our shortcomings and enable them to perform in the most decent way, so as to be able to take Nigeria to a greater height. So I pray that Allah make this Eid a very successful one for each and every one of us. May Allah accept and bless our sacrifices of this festive day, and make the blessings therein permanent for our life, for our country, and for the world at large. I say Eid Mubarak to us all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله